I'm Harry.
I'm Richard.
It's Dead Decks.
Yeah, or something else, whatever you like.
Yeah, buddy.
All right, buddy. Yeah.
I think I do 2 minutes of anything.
Can you?
No. Yeah. We can. I get. Nowadays there is no true objective stuff anymore. It's all just whatever you feel like. So.
I'd be your mama.
What do I feel like today? A dishwasher. Not somebody who washes dishes, but an actual dishwasher.
Like the machine?
Yes.
That's you're finally fucking useful.
First time ever.
Today we're talking about GenDu, Gentleman's Duel. We talked about it before, right? Yeah, we reviewed it.
Yeah, we did a quick review. We've got box openings that, as of this date and time, which is June of 2022, are not yet up. They will eventually be.
Yeah.
You may see one of those before you see this. Maybe.
We claim that eventuality thing a lot, and it's not always true. But
No.
we'll say it is this time.
Yeah. We can see whatever we want.
So, these are the backs of the sleeves. Pretty.
Get that really close. I'll use that as a thumbnail.
Yeah, that's cute. Mm-hmm. He's got a monocle and big buck teeth. Mm-hmm. How can you not like that?
I don't know.
So this was made in, I lost it again. 2014, maybe?
Yeah, that sounds right.
This is one of those that we are pretty sure the guys that made it are dealing crack or making meth in the basement. Mm-hmm. Seems to be self-produced. Don't know that it was crowdfunded. Not sure how they got their money. So this is a smaller, obscure, lesser-known thing. They was at Gen Con. They were at Gen Con 2 years. And then they just kind of disappeared.
Yeah.
Never really got a name for itself, as far as I know. Hardly anybody knows about it. So
yeah. Which, when we did our review, we got, I think, 17 views, which is about right. And that's just our hardcore loyal fans out there that'll watch anything we put out. Mm-hmm. And we appreciate that, because otherwise we'd be talking to ourselves a lot. More so.
My fog effects to start dramatically in the video.
Yeah, so we're moving up in the world. Look at that. Ooh. We got special effects.
Yeah. All right, so it's just me sucking on this thing that makes smoke come out. Mm-hmm. What I want to say first. So that's what the game is. What initially drew me to it is this aesthetic, where it's black and white, simple computer graphics, very minimalistic. Mm-hmm. I really like that. And their whole shtick in the game was having user submitted content. So you could sketch out a card and send it to them, and they would vote on it on social media. Whoever won got put into the next set. Pretty cool. But okay, so we'll go through what a card is, what kind of stats there are. Creatures have more than most, so we'll do one of those. So up here in the upper left is your level. For a creature, it's really just a rough indicator of how powerful they are. When you cut at the beginning of the game, that does have an effect, but in the game, level on a creature most often does not. Sometimes referenced by other cards. That's more important in a room, which we'll get to. So you got the name, you got the type. He's a noun. I love that they have nouns and verbs. There's no spells in creatures. This is the cost up here. So it's either going to be an H or an R. H means you discard a card from your hand to pay the cost. R means you sacrifice a room from the table. I'll cover that in a minute too. But then you got the effect, whatever ability the creature has. And then attack, health, speed. So those two are obvious. Speed is moving through the dungeon.
More like movement and not necessarily speed.
Movement, yeah.
They call it speed, but it's...
Yeah, that's a bad name. Yes. It's movement.
Yeah.
No, because you really can't move faster than anybody else.
No.
You move a block at a time.
Yes.
This is what a room looks like. It's white bordered. Creature's black bordered. So a room has a level, and that does matter for when you can play it down. And it has an effect. And that's really it. And then a verb, which is the equivalent of a spell. That also has a level and a cost and a name. Same thing. So creature just has the additional stats.
And it's gray bordered.
Yeah, and gray bordered, sorry. So there you go. Here's what the cards look like. So a walkthrough of the setup, at least, we can do quickly. I think let me show you the play mat, and I'm probably going to chuck it because it's very glary.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it out of the way. You can see the general pattern of where you lay rooms out. So what you're doing in the game is you're creating a dungeon. Both of you are. One room at a time on your turn. and you want to run through your opponent's dungeon, get through the dungeon to them, and if you get over there and there's no creatures in your way, no nows, then you strike them, and if they can't do anything about it by the end of their next turn, they die.
Correct.
So that is the primary win condition. The secondary is you deck them and they run out of cards. But so that's what you're doing is you're creating dungeons. There's rooms, they have traps, you can turn them over and things happen. That's pretty much what the gameplay looks like. So I'll get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Show our nice logo. So for setup, everybody shuffles their deck and draws 7 cards. If you don't, get a level 1 room card, which you have to lay the rooms down in order as a sequential number of their level. You can have a total of 7 rooms. So if you don't have a level 1 room card, you redraw. If you do that 3 times and you still don't get a level 1 room card, then the next time you redraw, you subtract a card. So you draw 6. And then you continue doing that until you have 0 cards you're drawing and you realize you made a shitty fucking deck and didn't have enough level 1 rooms in there.
And you lose the game.
Yeah, and you lose. So
there's technically 3 winning conditions.
That's true.
Though that one is so unlikely that you'll likely, if you ever play this game, which is very unlikely to begin with, if you do, you'll likely never win that way. But it's possible.
Somebody like me could pull that off.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is a much better way to play. Bourbon in one hand and deck in the other.
Yeah.
It goes smoother that way.
Yeah, the more you drink, the better this game plays. The other thing we didn't really mention is, it may sound like you have to build out an entire dungeon before you can go run an attack, but you can literally go attack as soon as you get creatures out. So it's beneficial to build a deck that's quick, generally.
Yep.
So you do not have to run through your opponent's dungeon.
Nope. No, there's no set construction phase. You don't have to wait until it's all built.
Nope.
It's going to be shifting throughout the game back and forth. They can sacrifice rooms as cost, so you can start running through it anytime. They just have 1 room. You can go.
Yeah.
They have to have 1 room.
Correct. We just explained that.
Yeah. And there is no cards in the game, no way for them to have 0 rooms ever. Cannot happen.
Right. You cannot sacrifice down to below 1 room.
Yeah. Can't sacrifice down to below 1, and there's the only card in the whole game that we've seen that does room destruction won't do the first room. There's no way to destroy that. So they'll always have at least 1.
Yeah, whatever room you put down first is a permanent room. It will never be removed. So.
Yep.
A little bit of strategy there as well.
Yep, so on the setup, we covered that. We covered the drawing cards, and then you cut your deck and see whoever has the highest level card goes first. So that's why all of the cards have a level, even though they don't all need it or use it. So that's the setup of the game. So your turn. How about I just show my 7 cards and talk through a turn that way?
Yes.
Here's my hand. That I completely had out of shot.
Yeah.
I set this up, so just to make sure I had a good hand to show. I do have a level 1 room. It's called the Trap Room. Great name. So down here in the effect, it says on flip, the owner of the room may pay H. So I may discard a card from my hand to destroy the noun that just entered. Treat this as a -1 speed room afterwards. So it has an on flip effect, and then it has a reduction effect afterwards. Now, we debated on one of these ambiguities, this is one of them, back and forth, that some of the cards explicitly say the effect stacks. So even when you pass the room, you still get that reduction. Some of them don't explicitly say that. So our assumption is, unless it explicitly says it's a cumulative effect, it is not. Mm-hmm. So it's -1 speed while you're in the room, and then when you pass it, it's not. I think maybe we decided it made sense that turn, when you walk through it would stay.
Correct.
So that's a bit ambiguous.
Yeah.
That's how we were playing it. So I have a level 1 room. You play it face down.
You can play it face down.
You don't have to, but I cannot think of a reason to play it face up. No, you got one.
Yeah, there's
a couple that has an effect only if it's face up.
Yeah.
So it could be the case you really want to get that effect. But most of them have an effect that's on flip, or it's good for them to be disguised. Your opponent don't know what they're walking into.
Correct.
So I'll play a room. That's the first thing I can do. I can play as many Nerb and Found cards as I want. Of course, that depends on what we're going to point out is the biggest problem we've found with this game so far, is the cost. This verb has no cost. And there are a few free cards in the game, but not very many.
Yeah.
Rest of them, you can see this guy I have to discard a card from my hand and sacrifice a room from play.
You could never play that first turn.
Yeah.
Unless you have something in your hand. There are room cards you can discard out of your hand that count as a room.
Yeah. And then this one, I discard a card from my hand. And then rooms, you have to have the levels below them before you can play them. So to play a 2, I have to have a 1 in play. To play a 4, I have to have at least 3 in front of it. So they don't have to be any certain number, but there has to be that many. This can only be the 4th room or later. I can't play this second. That's illegal.
Of course, the other thing to keep in mind is, hopefully your opponent's not cheating. They put down rooms. Because if they're all flipped down, you don't necessarily know what they are.
You have to be paying close attention and see later that, oh, hey, you weren't allowed to do that.
Yeah. And that's not spelled out anywhere. We don't know what the penalty for that would be.
Yeah, we're going to say
nobody would know until the rooms were flipped. And they don't get flipped until your opponent goes into that room. So
we're going to say you can kill them in real life. That would be the actual punishment.
that'll learn them.
Yeah, they won't do that shit again.
No. That's pretty much guaranteed. Unless they're zombies.
All right, so I think hopefully that made sense on the way the room numbers work. So when you get to the high number, God damn it, I cannot speak. When you get to like level 7 rooms, they're very, very powerful because you have to have 6 fucking rooms in front of it, and you can only play 1 a turn.
Yeah, and depending on, the way we built these decks that we've played, and we have played this game a few times, is you rarely get to room 7 because you have to sacrifice rooms to get shit out. So
yeah,
it's rare to get a room 7 down.
Yeah. So playing verbs and nouns. So I got this guy I want to play. He's a 1/1/8. He can move 8 times. He can also move as soon as he's played. Normally nouns have summoning sickness. They can't do things when you first play them, but this guy can, and he can run his little ass off.
Yep.
But to play him, I need to discard a card from my hand. So I'm going to discard this. I'll put it off. Who cares? And I put him in play. And now you see obviously what happened to my hand.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and say next turn I have another room down. I can actually. Well, let's do this. Let's say this is my second turn. I'll get back to the turn sequence. I got another room down. I want to play this guy. He's a discard and a room sacrifice. So I got to sacrifice this room. And I got to discard a card. And I'll play him. That's my second turn. I got 1 card left.
Technically, you would have another card because...
I would have drew it in.
You would have drawn a card. You draw the card at the end of the turn.
Yeah.
Not the beginning. So technically, you would have 2 cards in his hand.
Yeah, but, so I got 2. My second turn, I started with 7. I got 2. Yeah, so... And since these are my resources, it isn't just, I've played a lot of shit, so your hand's going to go down. Well, I'm out of juice. You run out of resources quick.
Yeah.
Which is our biggest issue with this game we found is pacing.
Yes.
You play a couple things and you're sitting.
Especially if there's good creature control up front or noun control. If you can wipe a board quickly on both sides, then you practically end up in a stalemate for several turns because nobody can do anything because they have to rebuild their hands.
Yeah. You got to have shit in your hand to get shit on the board, discard and sacrifice rooms to pay for things.
Right. You can only lay down 1 room per turn, so that limits how many really room cards or room cost cards you can play in a deck because they are so slow to play. And there's only, because the game is so small, there's only a couple sets. There's only just a handful of cards, and I only know of 1 offhand that you can use them in your hand as if they were a room to play a card out of your hand.
Yeah. So we'll go back to our turn sequence. Let me grab another card because I didn't walk through everything you can do. So play as many verb and noun cards as you can afford. Then you can start moving. So when you move, that's when you factor in this movement number here. Speed. Yeah, which is how many spaces you can move. So you start in the area known as your garrison, which is normally just back here by you, behind your dungeon. You can move from your garrison into the first room of your opponent's dungeon, who's going to be out of play. We just set this up as a 1-player game. I should have mentioned that. You're both going to have basically the same area.
Yeah.
So I can go into the first room of his dungeon, and as I move into the room, I will lose 1 speed for the turn. That continually goes down every room. And as I go into them, if they're not flipped, they'll flip, and any effect they have will take effect then. Oftentimes they can be killing me or kicking me back. So I'll go from 4 to 3, go into his first room. It'll flip, see what happens. Then I can move 1 more if I want. I'm still alive.
Nothing happens.
Yeah. And you can keep doing that until you march through and get to him. Yeah.
or you run out of movement
Yeah.
/ speed.
If you run out of speed, movement, then you just stay where you are.
Yeah.
Until at least your next turn.
Correct.
So once you've done your movement, then you actually draw a card to signify the end. So nothing else can happen after you draw. That is the end.
Yeah.
There's no fast effects. None of that kind of shit. Once you draw, it's over. So that is the last thing you do, and I found that very weird. We both kept fucking that up.
Yeah.
It's something that seems counterintuitive to me, but
yeah. And drawing one card, it's at the end of your turn. It keeps the slow pace going. It doesn't help out the slowness of the pace. And we just built these decks relatively quickly. We didn't put a ton of time into this. We have looked through quite a bit of cards, and neither one of us saw a whole lot of ways to draw cards, which will be the way to make these decks, to me, viable. If you can't draw cards, you're not going to do anything.
yeah.
And even then, I think you would really be wise to limit, room cards or room resource cards you would have in your deck, because it could really destroy your dungeon very quickly, leaving you open to attack. That's the other thing. So.
Yep. So once you get, we'll say a few turns have gone by, and I'll have played a few rooms. This is about what it's going to look like. That's the shape from the play mat. It's going to go like this, and then the 7th room it'll make like that shape.
Yeah.
This just helps easier to track where the entrance and exit is. So once your opponent comes all the way through, then they're into your garrison and they're fighting. So that gets us into battle. Battle is just a comparison of your stats. So whoever comes into a room, if there's multiple creatures in there, the controller of those creatures decides who they fight. So I'm the defender. I'll say we're going to fight this guy first. And when 2 creatures battle, they battle to the death. Mm-hmm. So that was clearly laid out in the rules.
Yeah.
So if you don't kill each other the first time, you do it again.
So somebody wins.
Yeah. And they both happen simultaneously, so your attack is subtracted from their health. Theirs is subtracted from yours, and if you're both alive, you do that again. And you can both die at the same time as well. So, And if you survive the one guy in the room or the garrison, then you're fighting the next one. So you can't sit in the same place without fighting.
Yeah. And it's instantaneous fight, too. There's no other conditions.
Yeah. So there's a couple ambiguities. We're running long, aren't we? Shit, yeah.
Yeah.
A couple ambiguities we noticed that are worth calling out.
Are we 17 minutes in?
Yeah.
Good fucking God.
Everybody's gone, so I'm just talking to myself. The battle of the death part we laid out. The how rooms work? What?
Well, one thing why you got it right here. So there's 4 rooms sitting out here currently. So if a creature runs through that gambit, gets all the way through the 4th room, then the next stop is the garrison and the attack on the player.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a full 7. You don't have to go through a 7. If there's 1 room, then you have to go through 1 room. If there's 7, you have to go through 7.
Yeah. The exit is after the last room.
Yeah.
Wherever that happens to be.
Yeah.
So one of the things that some of the card verbiage makes confusing is when damage resolution happens. We're pretty confident that all damage goes away at the end of the turn, like most CCGs.
Yeah.
And you're just miraculously healed when the turn's over. But there are some cards that read in ways that make that sound like that's not the case. So
right. And keeping up track of all that would be just a nightmare anyway. So.
Yeah, and there's an annoyance that we didn't call out is because your stats are changing so often in the turn. If you're really trying to keep close track of it, we played very loosey-goosey, but you'd almost need a bunch of die or something because
or counters or something, because there is a lot of modifiers.
Yeah, there's tons of. He's playing an animal archetype deck where almost everything modifies some of the creatures in play, and then as you move, of course, this number's going down each turn. Your health can go down.
Yeah, rooms affect all that.
Yeah, the room is changing, and every time you walk through one, they're dragging you down. So these numbers change for all your creatures.
Constantly.
Yeah. There's a lot of tracking that would have to happen.
Yep.
Unless you play as, don't give a fuck as we do, and we didn't really care if we lost track of that. The order of actions, we weren't sure if that's flexible. If you can, say you can move first and then play a noun later and then play a room after that. My impression is no.
Correct.
Yeah, I think that's no. It's supposed to be fixed in that order.
Right.
And I think that's the way we played it.
Yes.
Once you've played a room, you move on to doing other things. You can't play another room. You're done.
Yeah.
You can't move a noun and then play a room and then.
Yeah.
Yes.
And there's more ambiguities, and if it's just something for whatever reason that blows the fuck up, and people want to know more about this stupid ass game, which nobody is, and nobody's even watching because we're 20 minutes in, they'll make another fucking video, but don't fucking expect it.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I mean, our final verdict is we died on this pretty quick. I love the looks and aesthetic. And but the gameplay rhythm is so funky.
Yeah.
With those spurts of things happening and then just dying, and the pain of discarding your whole hand to get cards out.
And we failed to mention, we even tried drawing 3 cards at the end of the turn, and it still didn't fucking help.
Yeah.
It's the same fucking thing. It's just, you got a couple more creatures out for. But even like if your deck is room heavy, it still doesn't help you how many you draw because you can only lay 1 down per turn, and you have to sacrifice. So anyway, the only other thing we didn't really mention yet is basic deck construction. That's just it's an outline of what you would put in a deck. Generally speaking, of course, you can adjust it however the hell you want, but was it 10, 20, and 20?
Yeah, 10 verbs, 20 rooms, 20 nouns. All of the not pre-constructed. Well, they're not pre-constructed. They're randomized decks, but they seem to have the same ratio, so they're all very close to that. So that seems to be about what they recommend you putting in a deck.
And it has to be 50 cards, correct? I think that's right. Must be a 50 card deck.
Must be 50.
No more, no less.
Yep, that is correct.
All right. So yeah, we'll go ahead and tell you the basic rules at the very end of the video, so you don't have any fucking idea because you didn't watch this long. Merry fucking Christmas.
So are we done? How we do then?
Good enough.
Yeah, fucking shit. I'm turning it off.